My stepmother tried to fire me from my father's company 36 hours after we buried him. She sent the email before the sympathy flowers in the lobby had even started to brown. By lunchtime, she was calling herself the owner of Atlantic Tide Hospitality. By Friday morning, inside a quiet probate courtroom in Savannah, her lawyer opened one folder and learned she had inherited a sign, a logo, and nothing else. My name is Nathan Reed. I am 38 years old, and I live outside Charleston, South Carolina. For most of my life, I believed family businesses were held together by blood memory and handshakes. My father believed that too once. Then he married a woman who treated our name like a key card. And he learned something before I did. Love is not paperwork. Paperwork is paperwork. My father, Samuel Reed, built Atlantic Tide from a rented fish stall and one refrigerated van that broke down every other Tuesday. He started selling shrimp to restaurants before dawn, then opened a small seafood counter near Savannah's riverfront. By the time I was in high school, that counter had become 3 restaurants, 2 catering contracts, and a wholesale supply business that served hotels from Savannah to Hilton Head. Dad was not polished. He owned one decent suit, and he wore it to weddings, funerals, and bank meetings. He smelled like salt, coffee, diesel, and Old Spice. He could tell if oysters were bad from 6 feet away. He could also read a person's greed before they finished shaking his hand, though he sometimes ignored that gift when loneliness was louder. My mother, Elaine Reed, died when I was 17. Breast cancer took her in July, right when the marsh grass was bright and the air felt too warm for mourning. My father folded into himself after that. He kept working, kept paying, people kept showing up at the restaurants before sunrise, but a light in him went quiet like a porch bulb nobody remembered to replace. He met Monica Vale 8 years later at a hospitality charity auction. She was 34, beautifully dressed, and nearly 20 years younger than him. She had worked in event planning for luxury hotels, which meant she knew how to smile at a table of rich strangers and make every one of them feel chosen. My father was 53 and tired of coming home to a silent house. They married the following spring. I was 26 and already running operations for Atlantic Tide. I wanted to be fair to her. I really did. Monica never raised her voice at me. She never insulted me directly. Her talent was cleaner than that. She made me feel like a guest in rooms my mother had painted in a company my father had built in a family I had never left. At first, Monica stayed away from the business. Then she started helping with charity dinners, then vendor dinners, then payroll questions. By 2021, she had an office upstairs at the Riverfront restaurant and a title she invented herself, Director of Hospitality Relations. It sounded harmless enough until I realized every invoice, every vendor complaint, and every new supplier somehow passed through her hands. I noticed small things before I noticed the shape of them. A linen bill that doubled during a month when 2 dining rooms were closed for repairs. A shellfish transport company with a Charleston address that led to a mailbox store. A consulting fee paid to a marketing firm that had no website, no staff, and somehow billed us every second Friday. I brought it to my father in March of 2022. I did it carefully with spreadsheets, not suspicion. I told him we needed a full audit before expanding the catering division. He listened, rubbed his thumb over the old scar on his knuckle, and said, "Nathan, I am too old to turn my marriage into an investigation." I let it go. That mistake stayed with me. 6 months later, Dad was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis. Years of kitchens, docks, dust, and stubbornness had finally sent him a bill he could not negotiate. He kept working anyway. He slowed down, but he did not stop. Builders build, cooks cook, and men like my father keep opening doors at 5 in the morning until their bodies refuse the key. He died on a Monday in late October at home in the blue bedroom, overlooking the live oak behind the house. Monica called me at 6:12 a.m. Her voice was calm, almost polished. I drove from Charleston to Savannah, so fast the highway became a gray ribbon. When I arrived, she was already speaking to the funeral home, standing in the kitchen with a legal pad beside her coffee. My father looked peaceful. I hated that word before that morning, but it was true. He looked like a man who had put down a heavy crate after carrying it longer than anyone knew. I stood beside his bed and touched his shoulder. Monica stayed in the doorway. She did not cry then. She saved her tears for the rooms where people could see them. The funeral was held that Thursday. Cooks, servers, boat captains, hotel managers, old fishermen, bankers, and people who had eaten at my father's first seafood counter stood shoulder to shoulder in a chapel that smelled like lilies and raincoats. Monica sat in the front row wearing black silk and a veil. When people hugged her, she leaned into grief at exactly the right angle. 36 hours later, my phone buzzed while I was making coffee in my kitchen. The email came from Grant Bellamy, an estate attorney whose name I knew from expensive divorce rumors and waterfront property fights. He represented Monica Reed's surviving spouse of Samuel Reed. His message was short, courteous, and sharp enough to open skin. According to a will signed in August, Monica was the sole beneficiary of my father's estate. That included the Savannah House personal bank accounts, vehicles, and 100% ownership of Atlantic Tide Hospitality, LLC. I was requested to return all company keys, security cards, and internal financial access within 5 business days to ensure an orderly transfer. I read the email 3 times. The first time I was numb. The second time I felt heat rise behind my eyes. The third time something colder moved in and sat down at the table with me. My father had taught me that anger was useful only if it could hold a pencil. So I poured my coffee, opened my laptop, and called Eleanor Price. Eleanor was my father's attorney for 21 years. She had handled leases, vendor disputes, trademark filings, and 2 ugly insurance battles after a kitchen fire in 2016. She answered on the first ring. "Nathan," she said before I could explain. I wondered when Grant would send it. I looked at the email again. "You knew." There was a pause. "Come to my office this afternoon." Her office sat above a bookstore on Bull Street, old wood floors, tall windows, and file cabinets that looked older than several judges. Eleanor was already waiting with 2 coffees and a navy folder. She did not ask how I was, which I appreciated. Grief had made that question feel like a door I could not afford to open yet. "Your father came to me last June," she said. "He had concerns about vendor payments and internal access. He did not have enough to accuse Monica, but he had enough to protect the business." I stared at the folder. My father had not been blind. He had been quiet. That was worse and better at the same time. Over 9 weeks, with Eleanor's help, Dad had reorganized Atlantic Tide. The restaurant's catering contracts, seafood permits, refrigerated trucks, dock leases, kitchen equipment, trademarks, recipes, employee agreements, insurance policies, and operating accounts were moved into a holding company owned by the Samuel Reed Continuity Trust. The trust existed to preserve operations after his death. The named successor manager was me. The company Monica's attorney wanted transferred, Atlantic Tide Hospitality LLC, still existed. It held the old name, a basic corporate registration, and a dormant checking account with $42 in it. It had no restaurants, no employees, no boats, no contracts, no equipment, no licenses, and no receivables. My father had left Monica the shell because the shell was exactly what the August will described. I sat there for a long time, hearing carriage wheels outside on the street and tourists laughing below the window. My father, sick and running out of breath, had spent the last summer of his life building one final structure. Not a restaurant, not a dock, not a deal. A wall, clean, legal, quiet, and strong enough to stop Monica from walking through. "Grant will argue fraud," Eleanor said. "He will claim your father moved assets to cheat his widow." "Can he win?" I asked. She folded her hands. "Anyone can make noise. Winning requires facts. Your father documented the vendor problems, the business reasons, and Monica's access. The transfers were completed before the will. The trust was not hidden from the law. It was simply hidden from her." Then Eleanor gave me the advice that decided everything. Do not contest the will. Do not fight the transfer. Give Monica exactly what she is demanding. I looked up. The empty company. Eleanor's mouth moved almost a smile. The empty company. Let her lawyer place it on the record. Let him read the asset schedule in front of the court. That evening, I walked along the Savannah riverfront until the sun turned the water bronze. Tour boats moved past slowly. Somewhere a kitchen vent blew garlic and butter into the air, and for 1 second I could hear my father yelling at a line cook in the first restaurant, telling him not to drown good shrimp in cheap sauce. I whispered, "I see it now, Dad." Monica texted me the next morning. "Nathan, I hope we can handle this maturely. Your father would not have wanted bitterness." I stared at those words while standing in my kitchen in Charleston. 36 hours earlier, she had tried to remove me from the company he built with my childhood wrapped inside it. Now she wanted maturity. I set the phone down and made eggs. Grant Bellamy called Eleanor 2 days later. He sounded confident, according to her summary. Monica expected immediate compliance. Any obstruction from me would be treated as an attempt to interfere with a surviving spouse's lawful inheritance. He mentioned emergency filings, injunctions, and reputational damage. Eleanor listened, then said I had no objection. I would comply with the August will in full. There was a silence on Grant's end. Men like Grant enjoy resistance because resistance gives them something to bill against. Agreement makes them suspicious. That is unexpectedly reasonable, he said. Eleanor answered, Mr. Reed is a reasonable man. He wants his father's final instructions followed exactly. When she told me that, I laughed for the first time since the funeral. During those 3 weeks I kept working. The restaurants opened. The suppliers delivered. The payroll cleared. Our executive chef Marisol Vega knew about the trust because Dad had told her. So did our controller Henry Park and our wholesale manager Calvin Brooks. Everyone else only knew there was a transition. That was enough. Good businesses do not survive on gossip. They survive on systems. Monica came to the riverfront restaurant once during that period. She arrived at 11 in the morning wearing cream trousers and sunglasses too large for her face. She walked through the dining room like she owned the floorboards. I was reviewing a catering order when she stopped beside my table. I appreciate you not making this ugly, she said. My father's wishes are clear, I answered. That sentence was true in more ways than she understood. She nodded, satisfied, then looked around the dining room. I think we'll refresh the brand. Something more coastal, less old fisherman. I kept my face still. My father had designed that sign on a napkin. You should discuss that with your team after the transfer, I said. She leaned closer. Her perfume smelled expensive and cold. Nathan, there is still a place for you if you are cooperative. There it was. The velvet rope. The small gate she believed she controlled. I smiled politely. That is generous. She mistook calm for surrender, which was her favorite kind of misunderstanding. The hearing was scheduled for a Friday morning in Chatham County Probate Court. The sky was pale and damp and the marble steps were slick from overnight rain. I wore a navy jacket and the watch my mother gave my father on their 25th anniversary. It did not match the suit. I wore it anyway. Some things are not accessories. They are witnesses. Eleanor met me outside the courtroom with her associate Jonah Miles, a young attorney who carried binders like they contained explosives. Monica arrived 10 minutes later with Grant Bellamy. She wore black again, but this time it looked less like mourning and more like theater. Grant shook Eleanor's hand. Monica gave me a small, careful smile, the kind people give before they take something from you. The proceeding was quiet. No jury. No grand speech. Just a judge, a clerk, lawyers, paperwork, and the strange, cold machinery of a family being translated into assets. The judge confirmed the August will. Eleanor confirmed I did not object. Grant confirmed Monica was prepared to accept full ownership of Atlantic Tide Hospitality LLC under the will. I watched Monica's shoulders loosen. She had expected me to beg, argue, or accuse. Instead, I sat with my hands folded and let the room move exactly where my father had planned for it to move. The judge signed the preliminary order. Grant reached for the corporate transfer packet. Jonah slid the asset schedule across the table. Grant opened the folder. He read the cover page, then the second page. His eyes stopped moving. The room became very still. He flipped back one page as if the numbers might improve if approached from a different direction. Then he looked at Eleanor. Eleanor looked back with the calm face of a woman who had sharpened the knife months ago and set it gently on the table. The line was simple. Atlantic Tide Hospitality LLC net operating assets as of transfer date $42. Dormant corporate entity only. All active assets previously transferred to Reed Coastal Holdings under the Samuel Reed Continuity Trust effective July 18. No employees. No active contracts. No real property. No equipment. No permits. No receivables. Grant removed his glasses. He folded them slowly. A man folds his glasses like that when he needs something to do with his hands. Monica leaned toward him. What is it? She whispered. He did not answer quickly enough. Her smile disappeared 1 inch at a time. Grant, she said louder. What does that mean? He requested a recess. The judge granted it. Monica followed him into the hallway, but the courthouse door had a glass panel and I could see everything that mattered. Grant showed her the page. She read it once, then again. Her face changed from confusion to disbelief to fury so fast it looked almost painful. She pushed back into the room before Grant could stop her. What did you do? She said, looking straight at me. Her voice was low, but it shook. I did nothing, I answered. My father reorganized his business before he signed the will. That is theft. Eleanor stood before I could say another word. It was lawful succession planning based on documented business concerns. Mrs. Reed is receiving exactly what the will gives her. Monica's eyes flashed. He meant for me to have Atlantic Tide. He left you Atlantic Tide Hospitality LLC, Eleanor said. That entity is being transferred to you today. The judge looked over her glasses. Mrs. Reed, your attorney may address legal objections through the proper filings. Today's order concerns the transfer as written. Monica sat down. The widow's veil had finally slipped. The transfer was completed in 10 more minutes. Monica received 100% of Atlantic Tide Hospitality LLC. She received a name without a kitchen, a company without workers, a brand without rights, and a corporate shell containing $42. My father had not cut her out of the will. He had let her inherit the things she thought she wanted. Outside in the courthouse hallway, Grant spoke to Eleanor in a tight voice. He said they would review all remedies. Eleanor said she expected nothing less. Monica walked past me without looking at me. For 3 weeks, she had called this maturity. Now it had another name. Consequence. I stood beneath the fluorescent lights and felt no victory, only the heavy quiet of a job done correctly. Grant filed a challenge 11 days later. He claimed Dad's transfers were designed to defeat Monica's inheritance rights. He requested discovery, financial records, internal emails, trust documents, vendor payments, everything. Eleanor warned me it would be expensive and unpleasant. I told her to open the cabinets. My father had taught me that rot smells worse when you keep it sealed. Discovery did what discovery often does. It found things the person demanding it wished had stayed buried. The suspicious invoices I had mentioned in 2022 appeared again. Coastal Event Systems, a supplier that billed us for tenting, refrigeration, linens, and guest flow consulting, had received $318,600 over 16 months. The address led to a mail suite in Jacksonville. The bank trail moved from Coastal Event Systems to a small Florida LLC owned by Monica's brother, Daryl Vale. Daryl had no event business. He had a fishing boat, 2 liens, and a gambling problem. Monica had approved 12 of the payments herself. 3 carried her digital initials. 1 had been processed while my father was in the hospital for lung testing. Eleanor did not waive the evidence like a threat. She filed it as part of the case relevant to business reasons for the restructuring and to Monica's credibility. Grant Bellamy withdrew 9 days later, citing a professional conflict. That phrase sounded polite. What it meant was simple. He had walked into court expecting a widow's inheritance fight and found a paper trail with teeth. Monica hired another attorney, a woman named Serena Holt. Serena was sharper and less theatrical than Grant. She read the file, called Eleanor, and asked for mediation within the week. That told me everything. Lawyers who think they can win do not ask for clean exits before the coffee gets cold. The settlement was signed in December. Monica kept the Savannah house, my father's personal checking account, and 2 investment accounts that were rightfully part of the marriage. She waived every claim against Reed Coastal Holdings, the trust, the restaurants, the docks, the permits, and the operating accounts. In exchange, the vendor evidence stayed civil and was not referred for criminal review. Some people wanted me to push harder. Calvin wanted a referral. Marisol called Monica a thief in 3 languages, 2 of which I did not know she spoke. Even I had moments where I imagined a harsher ending, but Eleanor said something that stayed with me. Your father did not build this plan to punish Monica. He built it to keep Atlantic Tide alive. She was right. Revenge makes good noise, but protection leaves cleaner rooms. Atlantic Tide had 126 employees by then. Dishwashers, servers, drivers, cooks, bookkeepers, oyster shuckers, bartenders, maintenance crews, and managers with mortgages and children and bad knees. My father was not protecting a logo. He was protecting people who clocked in before sunrise and trusted his name to clear their paychecks. The day after the settlement, I drove to the first seafood counter my father ever rented. The building is a souvenir shop now selling pirate mugs and peach candy to tourists. I stood across the street and remembered him at 32, broke and stubborn, writing prices on a chalkboard with my mother beside him. They had no empire then, just ice shrimp, debt, and nerve. Then I went to the main restaurant. Dinner service had started. The dining room was full, silverware flashing under warm light. Marisol shouted at a line cook. Henry complained about invoice formats. Calvin was outside arguing with a supplier about late scallops. Ordinary sounds. Beautiful sounds. The sound of a business still breathing. I walked into my father's old office after closing. Monica had wanted to redecorate it. I left it mostly the same. The framed photo of the first counter still hangs above the desk. His rubber boots are not there anymore because I finally took them home, but the room still smells faintly like paper coffee and the peppermint candies he kept for nervous employees. I found a note in the middle drawer a week after the settlement. Eleanor had not mentioned it because she had not known it existed. It was written on Atlantic Tide letterhead in my father's blocky handwriting. Nathan, if you are reading this, then the wall held. Do not waste your life hating someone who wanted a door. Just keep the kitchen open. That was my father. Even dying, he did not write a speech. He wrote an instruction. Keep the kitchen open. Keep the trucks running. Keep the people paid. Keep the name attached to work, not greed. I sat in his chair with that note in my hand and cried for the first time since the funeral, not loudly but honestly. The lesson was not that every new spouse is dangerous. That would be easy and false. The lesson is that trust without structure can become a gift to the wrong person. Love can sit at the dinner table, but the books still need balancing. A family can pray together, mourn together, and still need signatures that say exactly who owns what. My father learned that late, but not too late. He saw the pattern, documented the facts, called the right attorney, and protected what mattered. Monica thought she understood inheritance because she understood possession. My father understood legacy. Possession is what you can grab. Legacy is what still works after your hands are gone. Atlantic Tide is still operating. The restaurants are open. The wholesale trucks leave before dawn. The dock leases are current. The employees got holiday bonuses that year because the company survived the storm Monica tried to become. Every Friday morning I eat breakfast in the corner booth of the riverfront restaurant. Black coffee, scrambled eggs, and toast. My father used to say eggs only need heat and patience. He said people ruin simple things by rushing them. I understand him better now. Heat shows you what something is made of. Patience tells you whether it can last. Monica brought the heat. My father left me the patience. And that, more than any company, was the inheritance that saved us.